see you guys in the dark.
Thank you for stealing at Barnaby's. That's what I would tell all the shoplifters that I catch, as the cops are putting them in their cars and taking them down to the station. You see, if they didn't try and steal stuff, I wouldn't have a job. So it's kind of like security for me. I'm Winston. I'm the LP guy here at Barnaby's. For those of you who don't know what LP stands for, well, unless you've been living under a rock your whole life, you already know what it stands for, but I'm going to tell you. It stands for loss prevention, which means that I keep an eye out for employee theft, customer theft, fraudulent coupons, overbilled invoices, things like that. Anything that would cause Barnaby's to lose money in any way, shape, or form. Now, I'm sure that you've been told this before, but it's a very old store. We don't have one of those 24-hour DVR recording systems like the big name stores do. We still record everything on VHS tapes using an old VCR system. We have to change the tapes every 8 hours and hope nothing happens during the time that we're changing those tapes. We have a few cameras throughout the store, actually 14 in total. One in each register, one in the cash office, one down in HBC aisle, that's the health and beauty care aisle, one on every single exit, two in the parking lot, and one in the surveillance room. The cops always come by and review the tapes whenever something happens. Yeah, they've been here quite a bit. They came by a few days after Jimmy saved that dog from dying in that car last summer. My tapes helped to convict that guy, and that's a different story. I've been here about 35 years now. Yes, I'm old. I thought that I have seen it all, but I was wrong. Now that I know that Pat is collecting stories about weird and horrible things that has happened here, this is more strange than anything. I still can't figure this one out. This happened about 15 years ago, and hasn't happened since. Thank God. Anyways, it was way before Pat even took ownership of this place. Back then it was owned by his father, David. He was a really cool dude, strict but fair. He taught Pat that everything he knows about business. I remember Pat when he was just a little kid. He would come into the store with his dad and take them up in his watchtower. That's what I like to call my surveillance room. Yes, I'm a huge Jimi Hendrix fan. Actually, it's a Bob Dylan song, but Jimmy did it better. Just my opinion. That's way before your time. We'd sit up there and just watch people shop. And now he owns the place. I've gotten way off track here. That's what happens when you get old. Here we go. It was mid-afternoon on a Thursday. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was in my watchtower looking out the window at all the shoppers. Actually, it's not a window. It's a two-way mirror, which means that I can see out, but all the people down below see as a huge mirror on the wall. So if you're ever in a store and you see a mirror on the wall that seems kind of out of place, yeah, that's the surveillance room, and you're being watched. Anyways, nothing has really happened that day. Just the regular customers in here buying their usual stuff. Kids reading the magazines as their parents shop. Old folks hanging out in the produce having a meet and greet session. The normal stuff. I noticed a person. I assumed that it was a man, dressed in a long black hooded cape that dragged on the ground, standing in the barbecue section, which is the last aisle over, all the way against the wall. I couldn't see his face. He was putting packages of toothpicks inside the cape. Toothpicks, of all things. Anyways, I checked the VCR to make sure that it was recording and made a beeline for that aisle. My first catch of the day. I walked into the aisle, said, "Sir, can you please come with me?" He immediately ran in the other direction, dropping the toothpicks in the process. Well, more like glided than ran. It was very weird. Anyways, I gave chase. He nearly ran over an older lady pushing her cart down the aisle. She didn't even acknowledge what was going on. She just gave me a strange look as I ran right past her. He reached the end of the aisle. I expected him to go right, down the back aisle, but instead he went left, straight into a wall. I turned the corner, expecting to see him on the floor, but all I saw was a black cape lying on the floor against the wall. He just kind of disappeared, into thin air. I stood there dumbfounded and scratching my head. What the hell happened? I slowly bent over and picked up the cape, carried it back to my room. I hung it on the nail on a wall. I was sitting there, just staring at it, trying to figure out what was going on, when out of the corner of my eye, on camera 6, I saw another person in a black cape standing in the middle of the parking lot. Their head was down, so again I couldn't see their face, and their hands were cupped in front of them. I again ran down the stairs as fast as I could, ran through the store and out the front door. I got to the edge of the parking lot. I saw this person begin to raise their head, but I was still too far away to see his face. He tilted his head back and raised his arms upward, as if it was screaming at the sky. Suddenly, a black SUV came from around the corner, headed towards him, driving much faster than he should have been in a parking lot. I screamed for him to stop. Just as the SUV was about to hit him, the cape dropped to the asphalt. As the SUV drove over top of it, this thing just disappeared as well, just like the first one. I stood there screaming, "Did you see that? Did anyone see that?" Everyone just looked at me like I was crazy. Am I the only one seeing this thing? I thought to myself. Man, I gotta stop drinking so much coffee. The caffeine's messing with my head. Anyways, I walked over to pick up the cape as well, and started to walk back towards the store. People just stared at me as I walked past them. I got back to my room, and I hung up that cape on the wall as well. I sat down in my chair, and closed my eyes. My mind was going in circles. What is going on? What are these things? Where did they come from? Why can't anyone else see them? All these questions were going around in my head. Am I crazy? Have I been drugged? Is this for real? Suddenly, I felt an intense burning on my shoulders, and massive pressure holding me down in my chair. I opened my eyes and tried to scream, but nothing came out. All the monitors, all 14 of them, suddenly lost signal, then simultaneously came back on, showing the same camera image. It was the image from my surveillance room camera. There was a black hooded figure standing right behind me, holding me down. My body was paralyzed, and I couldn't move. The burning was growing intolerable. My head thrust backwards with the force of 1,000 angry men. I started to hear a low, guttural growl, like something from the depths of hell. As the figure leaned its head forward, directly over mine, I should have been able to see its face, but I couldn't. What I did see was a dark blanket of nothingness. Then, like a movie being played, I saw still frame photos and short film bursts of Native Americans being brutally slaughtered and tortured, their dead bodies lying in bloody mounds and forgotten burial grounds. I've heard this place was built on Indian burial grounds, but I never expected this. It was like one of these brainwashing films that you see in spy movies. It was horrifying. The growl intensified until it was almost deafening. The entire room started to shake. The mirror burst outwards, faking to the sales floor below. I screamed. The pain and fear that caused me to lose consciousness. I was awoken by David, pounding on the door and screaming, "Winston, what's going on in there? Open the damn door!" I rushed to my feet, opened up the door, and saw David standing there. He said, "Oh my God, what happened to you?" I just looked at him, confused and disoriented. I said, "I really don't know." I shut the door and turned back into the room, noticed that the cameras had turned to normal. The mirror was back in its place, and the figure was gone. Its cape lay in a ball behind my chair. I quickly stopped the tape and reviewed it. I was sure that I caught something on there, but there was nothing. No figure stuffing toothpicks in its cape, just me running through the aisle and toothpicks falling on the ground. Nothing almost getting ran over by that SUV, just me running through the parking lot and screaming. No figure holding me down, just me spasming in my chair. No, this can't be happening. I'm not crazy. It has happened. I know it did. I reviewed the tapes once again. Still, there was nothing. I grabbed all of the capes and the tape. I ran down the stairs, told David that I was leaving. I hopped in my car and left. I needed to get out of there fast, for my own sanity. I threw the capes and the tape in the back seat, burned rubber out of the parking lot. I drove around, aimlessly, for about an hour, trying to clear my head, but every time I looked in my rearview mirror, I saw the capes, and it all came rushing back to me. I saw the town church off in the distance. Now, I was never a very religious man up to that point, but after the day that I had, I knew that I needed Jesus. I pulled into the church, went to go grab the capes and tape out of the back seat. The capes were gone. They disappeared, just like the figures. I started to panic. I grabbed the tape and ran into the church, screaming for someone to help me. Everyone turned and stared at me. An older gentleman approached me, introduced himself as Father Thomas. Anyways, I told Father Thomas what happened and showed him the tape. He took me into his office, played the tape in his VCR. There was nothing to it, nothing but snow. Father Thomas suggested that he perform a blessing on me and arrange for a baptism. I obliged. I was rebaptized 2 days later, and have been an active member of the church ever since. I returned to work the very next day, with no questions asked. David just shook my hand and said, "I'm glad that you're feeling better. Now get back to work." I really missed that man. That's a different story. I really hope you enjoy. My name is Sam. I'm the scan analyst here at Barnaby's. For those of you that don't know what a scan analyst is, it's just a glorified name for price checker. I'm in charge of making sure that all the pricing for all the items in the store are correct. I'm in charge of grocery, HBA, frozen food, dairy, front-end candy, tobacco, plus all the vendor items. I have to make sure that the little white price stickers that the employees put on the items match the price in my price book that Pat gives me every single week, and that they both match the little white sticker on the shelf. Produce, deli, and the meat room all have their own pricing systems, so they can take care of their own. We don't have any of those fancy laser tag printing machines like the big name stores do. I have to handwrite all the prices on all the tags for all the items. My hands hurt so bad by the end of the day. Anyways, when I was little, I wanted to be a marine biologist. But as I grew up, I developed a phobia, which made me fear fish. The way that they swim underwater with no arms or legs, and those beady little eyes. Ugh. I can't even go into the fish section of a pet store without freaking out. Hell, I had trouble watching Finding Nemo for God's sakes, and that's a cartoon. But anyways, you don't really care about that. Let me tell you what happened. It was about 5:45 in the morning. Pat and I are at the coffee shop across the street, like we always do. We take turns buying coffee for each other. I take mine with cream and sugar. He takes his black. It's pretty disgusting. Anyways, we go to get our coffee. Made our way back to the store around 6 o'clock. Now I know what you're thinking. Why are you heading to the store at 6 if it doesn't open up until 7? Well, the store doesn't open up to the public until 7. Pat and I usually go in early to get a head start on things that we have to do for the day. He does paperwork and payroll while I start my price checks. Sometimes other employees come in early as well for cleaning or to get a head start during the holidays, or days we know that we are going to be busy. Today was a normal day. Well, it was supposed to be. Anyways, we arrived at the store, got out of our cars, and started walking towards the building. From out of nowhere came this guy who was about 6 feet tall, dressed in all black, with a black ski mask covering his face. I gasped and stood there in fear. He walked up to Pat, who didn't seem fazed at all, and asked, "What time do you open?" 7 o'clock, Pat said. Then with lightning speed, the guy pulled a handgun out of his waistband of his pants and put it to the back of Pat's head and said, "You're open now. Get inside, both of you. Lock the doors." I was shaking, crying, and scared to death at this point. "Shut up," he screamed at me. We walked into the store with only the security lights to see by. The motion detectors kicked in and turned all the lights on and turned the security lights off, startling all of us. "Get on your knees and don't move," he ordered. We did exactly as we were told. Waving the gun back and forth between the both of us, he screamed, "Where's the money?" "The cash office. It's in the cash office," Pat said nonchalantly. "Get up," he told Pat. "Let's go, and don't you move," he told me, "or I'll put a bullet in your head." I stayed right there as I was. Anyways, they walked back to the cash office, went inside, and came back out a few minutes later. The guy was holding a blue bank deposit bag, which I assume was all the money, still holding the gun to Pat's head. "Turn around," he told Pat. Pat turned, and as he did, The guy stepped back, raised the gun, and said, "Have a nice day." Then bang, bang, bang! 3 shots directly into Pat's chest. Pat stumbled back, hitting the wall and sliding into a sitting position, then falling over to his right, blood pouring out of his chest and all over the floor. As he struggled to breathe, I screamed as he took his last breath. Pat was dead. The guy ran to go out of the front door, but slammed headfirst into it. He ran headfirst into a locked door. Now that I think about it, that shit was pretty funny. The idiot. Anyways, he stumbled back, holding his head. Just then, Lily, the Native American woman that runs that place out back, "You came in too early," apparently came out of the back room and screamed as well. The guy turned and fired 2 more shots in her direction. Luckily, he missed her. Lily began screaming. Later on, what I found out is that she was screaming for help in Cherokee. Anyways, all of a sudden, every single light in the store went on. A single gunshot and a clicking of an empty gun was heard soon after. Clicking, I thought. He's out of bullets. I went to go get up, but quickly changed my mind, because just then, the sound of drums filled the air as an intense bright white ball of light began to glow above Pat's dead body and illuminating the area where we were as well. "What the fuck?" I heard the guy say. He threw the gun, screaming like a little girl, repeatedly as he fumbled with the lock, trying to get it open. A dim yellow light began to rise from the ground up behind him. The light quickly spread to cover the entire floor as transparent images of Native Americans stomping in places and clapping rose from it. The drums were getting louder as the chanting began. The sound was nearly deafening. Lily screamed that word over and over again. The guy's entire body then began to convulse while he struggled with the door, then snapped a 180-degree turn like it was spun around by an unseen force and slammed back hard against the door. Several whooshing sounds were heard as arrows from all directions suddenly appeared out of thin air and shot directly into the guy's chest, stomach, arms, and legs, one right after the other. A few arrows hit his groin area, as well as his face, through both of his eye sockets and his mouth as he screamed. Blood started randomly oozing from every hole. His bloody arrow-covered body then fell face first to the ground, driving the arrows completely through his body and out the other side. He looked like a human pincushion. Anyways, the images stopped stomping all at once and just stood there. Everything had stopped. It was dead silent. The bright white ball of light then began to pulsate very fast, like a turn signal about to blow. It then shot directly into Pat's blood-soaked body. His body then lit up so brightly that I had to cover my eyes to shield them from the light. After a few seconds, a loud bang was heard, like the sound of a sonic boom, causing the entire floor to shake, knocking over displays and the green M&M stand-up cardboard cutout that we had at the front registers. You know, the girl M&M. I love M&Ms, the way that they melt in your mouth. It's mind-blowing. Anyways, after the shaking stopped, every light in the store came back on, and the images disappeared. I sat there with my hands covering my face, shaking and crying. Lily came running out from the back room to make sure that I was okay. She helped me up and made our way to the front door. I put my hand on the right side of my face, blocking my vision so that I wouldn't have to see Pat's dead body. We had no choice but to step into the blood of the guy. As we got to the front door, unlocked it, and prepared to leave. Just as we were about to walk out the door, we heard a low, moaning sound. We looked to our right and saw Pat. He was moving. He was still alive. There weren't any bullet holes or blood. Nothing. It was like it never even happened. He sat up and began to pat his chest, then looked at us in total confusion. We both ran to him and hugged him and helped him up off the floor. "What happened?" he said. "I'll explain later. Let's just get the hell out of here," I told him. We unlocked the door. Pat accidentally, or on purpose, kicked the guy in the head as he grabbed the bloody bank bag, and we all stepped outside. There were customers waiting for the store to open. "I'm sorry, folks. Barnaby's is closed today," he said. The crowd had disappeared as Lily called the police from her cell phone. We walked over to the coffee shop across the street. I bought Pat the biggest cup of coffee that they had. After what he's been through, I think he deserves it. The cops showed up about 20 minutes later with a couple of ambulances and the coroner. We walked back to the store when they arrived. The EMTs tended to Pat, Lily, and myself, and found nothing physically wrong with any of us. Pat was physically dead less than an hour ago from 3 gunshot wounds to the chest, and now he's just perfectly fine. They saved his life, I thought. I've got a new respect for Native Americans, let me tell you. Anyways, the coroner loaded up the guy's body, arrows and all, and then left. The cops took our statements and left. So did the EMTs. Pat called Steven to come in and clean up the mess. He's waiting inside for him to show up now. Lily went to go open up her place, and I was walking to my car so that I can leave as well when the blonde lady asked to talk to me. So that's what happened.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.